أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Okay, inshallah, we can start with session 2, and the stage is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. So I guess in the first session, we talked about the behavior that we exhibit, right? What we find ourselves doing in our lives, how we end up interacting with things, how we end up sometimes perhaps deceiving ourselves, fooling ourselves, and appeasing ourselves with names. And this session will continue looking at the Quranic narration of Hud alayhi salam and his interactions with his qawm, his people, and what that means for us, what that means, how their behaviors reflect in our behaviors, how their mentalities, approaches to the world, worldviews, denials, mistakes, errors, are our mistakes and errors. And I guess we'll be talking a bit about the ruling of tyrants, right? So who are these tyrants? And what are we looking at, I guess, can be the question that we begin with, but we can also take a look at the verses that we'll be specifically looking at in this session.
So this is just taking things a little bit maybe to the back, and just to remind ourselves the background story. And to add, we sent their brotherhood. He said, "O my people, worship Allah. You have no deity other than Him. Worship Allah. You have no deity other than Him. Then will you not fear Him?" This is all it started with. We faced with the message in which we are warned against false idols, and Brother Yusuf nicely warned us against them. All these false names that we made up, that we make up, and how they don't have any authority, and so on. And instead, we should try to find, like, worship Allah. You have no deity other than Him. When I read this ayah, it simply means you have to find the true deity. You should get rid of all the false idols. And that's the message. And then it, like, the way it ends, أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ, so don't you then have taqwa? Don't you have, won't you fear, it says, but it's more than just fear, right? Don't you have taqwa, the consciousness? And consciousness of what? Consciousness of all the false idols, and the consciousness of the true deity, true object of worship.
I guess in one respect then, we can say that whatever I do have taqwa of, whatever I am conscious of in my day-to-day life, that is what I end up worshiping.
Exactly, right? That's a
because
great point.
Whatever is at the forefront of my vision, whatever I am actively giving authority to, power to, saying I rely upon this, then that is the center stage of my worshiping. So, and it's very interesting because there is usually something at the forefront of our focus, something that, let's say, attracts our attention towards something. Maybe if it's illness, it's illness, and it's like, oh, I have to carry this medicine with me, and I have to take it on the hour, on the dot. If it's our job, it's about constantly, as we're working on our project or work, we're like, will my boss be appeased by this? Will my supervisor like this? Will my advisor like it? Or how will this open up my prospects for X, Y, and Z, or my clients, my patients? So whatever, I guess, and I'm thinking about this for myself, is on my mind, that is the object of my worship. Perhaps we could say that, right?
And when we look at narrations describing taqwa, One of them is as if you are walking among these thorny, the flowers, roses, and you walk so carefully that they will not touch your skin and hurt you. Right? So, and most of the time I find myself in such a situation, and the reason I'm so careful is usually not to hurt people or the objects in my life. Because I think if I hurt them, I will be harmed. Like my boss, for instance, my colleagues, my friends, my professor, my parents, my husband, my wife, my children. I'm so afraid. So I have to strategize all the time. That people will complain why they are always giving examples from the academia, but it's the best place, right? These thorny flowers. So you have to strategize every single step of yours. If you go bad odds with someone, you may end up with, facing some issues, or the grant you are proposing, or the paper you're trying to write, or the project that you are planning to be part of, or the grades that you are after in, let's say, data structure class.
I hope they are not listening to this discussion.
Sorry?
I hope they are not listening to this discussion.
Everything can go wrong. So you have to walk really careful. So you have to taqwa in, the academia. And the ayah says, that's your deity, that's your object of worship. And you have to find the true object of worship. And we discussed a lot in different avenues whether a human being can be in a neutral state without any deity, any worshiping, and so on and so forth. Just honestly looking at yourself, you will know the answer. Answer is always no, a clear no. Because there will be always hundreds, thousands of needs. And these needs to be satisfied. So you either find the one who controls everything in your life, every need of yours, or you have to worship all of them individually. That's the two option, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe your examples come from all that what your world is. But I mean, it's the same for everything, for everyone, right? You stay in a job because if you stay less than a year, this will look bad on my resume. When I respond to a friend, let me add this emoji because if I don't, the sentence is going to come off like unfriendly. We're constantly, in a sense, strategizing throughout every aspect of our life. Like we seek a sort of harmony, but also like we don't want to suffer ourselves in any sense of the word. So I guess like going back to what you were said, like there is no neutral that I can bring the gear to, right? There is no do I worship or do I not worship, but it's always about like what and how many things am I actually worshiping? Getting as you were referencing in the first session, am I in a sort of multiplicity? Am I lost in a multiplicity rather than directing that consciousness towards a one that can actually fulfill what I find I am in need of in my life?
And that's the great point. With every false name that we come up with comes a false idol. Because the thing with the names, both from, let's say a practical point of view, also from even a linguistic point of view, the names are immutable, meaning you cannot change them. Like if you give a name, if it is gravity, it is gravity. There's nothing to do with it. Like there's nothing that you can do with it. It has a name. So you have to obey it. So when children, upsets us, we get angry. And there's a name for it. There is nothing that you can do about it. So it's a deity that you cannot change. almost has an absolute power over you. If everything is made up matter, for instance, and this matter is this mindless matter, do the things by itself, then you are in the hands of this mindless matter. And you cannot change it, even if you try. It's, you would say, natural law. You would give a name. So it's immutable. It cannot change. I already call it name. I'm sorry. You have to obey. You have to, abide. It's like a children games, calling a name. Like I already call it, so it's mine. This type of thing. So I already gave it a name, so you cannot do anything about it. Like why our society is so, let's say, crooked. And somebody would say, oh, it is, give the sociological name for it. It's what is it? The economy based on extraction, not inclusion of whatever. Oh, that means we have such a, the system in place and we cannot do anything about it. Oh, because of your genes, because of your culture, there's always a name. And with all these names comes false idols.
And the title of the session was Ruling Up Tyrants, right? So I feel like maybe we're inching towards what those tyrants may look like. But it's also a sense of sometimes when we think of tyrants, like as if they're imposed on us. But there's also a sense in which we adopt these tyrants as well, right? Like I choose what I am going to live in consciousness of. Perhaps
we are not ones to leave our gods.
Right.
Nor are we believers. Like there's a conscious choice. With an obstinate attitude, you say, this is what I am. And I will not leave my God an qawlike, just because you said so. With your, look at this guy. No matter how many sessions he would lead, right? Nobody would look at him and say, oh yeah, this is a wise guy. I should listen to him. Why? He's not among the eminent ones, right? The society will not change based on somebody like myself, for instance. Even if I say something true, even if I say something right, because I don't have the right accent, let's say, because I don't have the right look. I don't know, my pens are wrong. My family is wrong. I'm not coming from 3 generations of Nobel laureates. So just because I said so, nothing will change. So there's this status quo, there is this social construct. And when I say social construct, it's not about other people, it's ourselves as well. This is how Zerar also thinks, right? So it has difficulty to believe in me, or let's say Yusuf versus his professors, other professors, prestigious professors. And maybe Birkan is saying true, right, or whatever, but this is not the reality. I'm sorry, Birkan, right? The life doesn't go as you describe. I have to obey. I have to follow the system around me. So it's always a conscious choice.
Right. And I guess looking at this verse, like I have to ask myself, okay, then what are my ilahs, right? What are my alihatinas? What am I not letting go of in my life in terms of giving authority, giving power to, obeying, being conscious of? And I guess like one way to locate these ilahs in my life is to locate where am I suffering in my life? Because wherever there is suffering, there must be some false idols that I will find, some false gods that I will find in my life.
Okay. So yeah, this is I guess the main ayah. We will try to understand Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah.
So before in the previous verse, in the first session, there was a verse that said, like the message comes from us. That don't worship false idols or the names, give it a name. And so nothing more clear sign came to us, nothing but you and I came to us. So how does that relate to me? What is my excuse? That, why would I say that there's nothing clear to me, but although the evidence is in front of me, but maybe we can touch a little bit on that, on how, because the message can come to me, and I will say, okay, what am I doing wrong? And like the case you were making that I have to live with the system that is saying I have to use the vocabulary and live with it. Like, what's the excuse that about the clear evidence that is out there?
Oh, Yusuf wants to say something.
So just to make sure I understood what you said. So if you can go to the previous verse. So here the people are saying that we are not going to change our way because of what you say. So the emphasis in here is not about because of the content of what you say. It's about what you say, what your word is. So judging the saying based on, as you mentioned, the social status of that person. We don't care about what the meaning of what you are saying is. It's all about who says it. And this is very much in line with the naming. You were just naming them as names. You and your fathers was the position that the prophet took, saying that you believe in them because it's ancestrally, you have been calling them names. You have this, if you like, system of authority that you established. The names you had didn't have any authority, but you were assuming authority on them because of your lineage of authority within the society. And now that I am a loner within the society, in your eyes, I am no one, you're taking my words value less. So in this sense, really, what's being depicted in here is, and if I take myself as such in today's society, when I sit in front of revelation versus the dominant culture within the society, if I am feeling threatened or anxious towards what is the common word versus what the revelation is saying, it's exactly the picture being depicted in here. It's all about the titles and the names within the society that alienates me in listening to the message of the revelation.
I think what you said is extremely important. I can also apply it to the names and the societal construct that I also build around myself. Like in let's say a religious circle where a Quran is being discussed, we always find ourselves in an attitude that I already know this. There is nothing new will come to me. I mean, who Ayşenur thinks she is that will teach me something? Because we name her as teacher just because she's sitting there. And then we look at her background, we look at her education, whatever. I mean, I'm choosing her on purpose because she has the best education among us. And then we say, you know, I already know this thing. I've been this school or that school, that circle, this circle. I listened to all these scholars and so on. And I put a hierarchy to the scholars, all these names again. Oh, I'm from this culture and we believe in this. We believe in this. It's not I believe in this. It's not that I'm convinced about something. It's about my fathers. It's we believe in this. So there are these internal names as well in religious circles. So when somebody comes with a new message, new understanding, for instance, we should say, like, I'm sorry, but I will not leave my previous understanding behind just because you said so. The content doesn't matter most of the time. It's who is talking. And another thing, of course, knowing that this is about so قالوا يهود, right? So they are referring to a prophet, at least a person who comes with a message, who claims that this message coming from the creator of the universe, and they know that this universe must be created somehow by someone. So in their council, there's reference to Allah as well, in council of God. But they still listen to him as a regular person. Just you are talking. This is your ideas. They don't take it as a message coming from the creator, coming from the Lord. So it's your ideas. So they denying the idea of prophet at the very beginning. And whatever comes from Hud, it's from Hud himself. So don't listen it as, okay, let's assume it's coming from the creator. Would it make sense? They don't have this attitude. But rather, okay, Zarar is speaking and I don't like it. This is the attitude, which is most of times our attitude anyway. Oh.
Well, like, there is a clear hierarchy there, right? We can't deny. So when it says like, "Atiullah wa atiur rasulul ulil amri minkum," and then obviously the ulil albab, and then the people of knowledge, and then when Quran in several places talks about those who are blind cannot be equal to those who see, then will you not reason? So how do you then at least reconcile this with the hierarchy that Quran is trying to establish between when you're trying to distinguish falsehood from truth, that listen to those who are people of reason? So there's for example, Sister Aisha Noor has a PhD from Harvard. I don't know if she has a PhD from Harvard. So like,
He's built me up too.
like, yeah, okay, but she has a PhD from Princeton. So like, that holds some weight, like that represents, like, at least in today's world, that's how we see the ulil albab. So how do we
We talked
reconcile?
about false names.
How do we reconcile the hierarchy Quran is establishing with the one that we have?
Do you mind if I share my example?
Oh, please go ahead.
One example came to my mind is like, I have one nephew, one niece, and we are driving in my home country, and on the back of the car, there are only limited space. So one of them needs to be on their mother's lap. Okay? Mother sits, and one of them needs to sit on top of her mother.
In your home country, you carry children like this?
Oh, they are big, like they over 15, let's say. Okay. So anyway, and the question is who, right? Because whomever you choose, the other one, like the person being chosen will be chosen, will be upset. So you can either choose, say that, oh, do you know what? You are going there because you are a girl, right? So this is a made-up name. It doesn't make sense. Like, why girl should sit rather than a boy? Or you say, you are sitting, do you know what? Because I don't like you as much as I like the other one. Made-up name. But if you say, for instance, oh, you have to sit because you are smaller, right? It will be less, let's say, prone to accidents and so on. Now it's not a made-up name. So within this context, this naming, let's say, has an authority. So in the same way, yes, there is this hierarchy, as you mentioned, the ulul albab, the scholars, and so on. And it is based on the understanding and the closeness to the lineage of the prophet. So if somebody is attached to the lineage of the prophet, being trained there and so on and so forth, and what I mean with the lineage of the prophet, it's not, of course, the blood lineage, but if you take it as a school, right? Whoever is trained more within this school, I would listen to him or her. To the extent he or she acts as a means for me to reach to the prophet and the message. And I have to decide it, of course. So in Quran doesn't say that Zarar and Qadir is ulul albab, but not Asim. Right? There's no such thing. And it's not also say that whatever your society calls, you will follow. It doesn't say that as well. Just gives you a characteristics. So still you have to find who is ulul albab or not. But there is at least a characteristics. There is at least a criteria. The closeness to the prophet, closeness to the message. So there is a hierarchy, a name with sultan, with authority, with, let's say, the meaning. But most of the times, our names are not with authority. We say, come on, he is, the Arab, and he is Turkish. Arab, Turkish, of course I will listen to Arab guy. This is a made-up name. Or he is from this university of that university, a made-up name. I mean, who knows this university, training people with full of shirk or not? You have to look. Who cares about the name? So this is how I see at least. Okay. So we said, like we already read that, right? Watilke ad. So even this part I really like when I read tilke ad, this is ad. Like it's as if this is your story. What you're going to read, this is you. And you are nothing but this. Tilke ad. And then, جحدوا بآيات ربهم وآسوا رسوله. We studied that part, knowingly rejected and so on. واتبعوا. So that part is what we're going to cover, inshallah, in this session. واتبعوا أمر كل جبار عنيد. And they followed, so they denied Allah and the Rasul, the messenger, right? And it doesn't say, and they lived in a neutral state, meaning they didn't have God. No, the alternative is always following some tyrants. And every tyrant. Or you can also read it maybe in a different way, is that whatever you follow will be a tyrant. And Jabbar is someone doing something with force. The second part is also interesting. Anid. I don't know if you have it in your language. Inat, we say in Turkish, like obstinacy. That you do something without, like baseless. As I pick my, let's say, niece over my nephew just because she's a girl. It's acting with obstinance, anid. Because I want so, because I think so, because my society thinks so, because this is the norm, whatever. Baseless. Without wisdom, without any purpose, without any goal. And it's tyrant. So maybe we should talk about that, like why tyrant Jabbar is used here.
Yeah. I guess you mentioned it briefly in that, like, what is a tyrant, right? A tyrant, usually we might think like someone who oppresses me, forces me to do things, but it's also like an entity that is indifferent towards my essential needs, right? Indifferent towards my expectations, my feelings. And like if I attribute, as you had mentioned, the ability to fulfill something, to matter, to things that don't have consciousness, that don't care about me, that are indifferent to me, then I end up adopting tyrants, right? And I don't just end up adopting them, but I end up following their commands as well. And we find this like even in our languages, the way that we say, like when we talk about chance or within our society, we'll say, oh, like the world is indifferent to you. It doesn't matter. Like it's not picking sides. It's indifferent to you. It's just cold, brutal forces of nature.
This is how it is.
This is how it is. Like
بالكاد.
toughen up. Yeah, toughen up. But I find that my human expectations go completely against this, right? It's not about toughening up or not toughening it up, but I find in myself a way of being in the world that feels very unfulfilled, right? I expect to be content in my life. I expect things to stay with me, right? Like if like there's a cute kitten, I want it to stay as a cute kitten, but it doesn't. Like a very, silly example perhaps, but I am constantly subject to this sort of constant change. And if I say, oh, the constant change is just, what's in charge here, then I also end up actively subjecting myself to something that doesn't care about me, that can never know what my needs are, because it's not even my creator to begin with. So that is how I'm understanding Tyrants.
So the mindless matter is a perfect example. Why? Because this is what we think that, one of the biggest ruler of the universe, matter, and every, let's say, natural law around the matter. This is how it is. You cannot change it, and it doesn't care about you. It works, it acts as it wishes, in a sense, right? And doesn't care about you. You are not part of the equation. You are just, there to be crunched within the system, within, the actions of the matter. And it's interesting. Once upon a time, I was listening to a guy with a, again, made up name, with a big title. And he was saying that you have to be courageous to accept that you are alone in this universe. Nothing cares about you. There's no such thing as wisdom or whatever. You have to be courageous. And I'm asking, like, what does it mean even being a courage if there's no meaning, if there's no wisdom? If nothing cares about me, why being brave has any value? Why shouldn't just sit on my corner and start crying? What separates me from him? He's so like a brave, never cries. Why should I be courage? What courage means? Why should I even listen to you? What your title means? So mindless matter, if everything happens by itself or by random chance, pure chance, that means I am under the ruling of this tyrant matter. It has this absolute consequence. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
So let me ask something to you. We keep repeating this phrase of, if we accept things to happen by themselves. MashaAllah, I see many Muslims here. I don't think anyone's saying, oh, things happen by themselves. Like this phrasing that I feel we use so often, things happening by themselves. We have to reject this. We have to make sure it's not in our life. It feels a little abstract sometimes. So what are the ways in which can you give me examples in the ways in which without realizing, accept this principle of things acting by themselves in my life? Although I claim that, no, of course, everything is created and everything has a creator and whatnot. Like, what are the sort of ways in which this manifests in my life? In sometimes very innocuous, seemingly innocent ways. Because I don't think any of us actively say, oh, yes, things happen by themselves. But our way of existing, our way of behaving in the world says otherwise. So what might be some examples, any big or small, in which I act as though things act by themselves?
with my body language, I acted as if I will give you an answer. But fortunately, I don't have to because we have Brother Yusuf with us. He can give us a good example of things happen by itself. Right? I mean, otherwise,
You
we can
have
try.
15 seconds when the mic reaches you. But I guess specifically in terms of like how it reflects in the way I interact and exist in the world.
I guess when I say children grow, or what happens sometimes is, let's say, some relationship breaks up. And what do I do in the face of such a thing happening? So either I wait that as if it's going to get healed by itself, or this is what I mean, since the question was about how it happens by itself, I guess leaving it and expecting it to heal by itself is one way to, like, sometimes being inactive, sometimes just watching the child and saying that, oh, children are growing, or sometimes within the society, I do think that, oh, society is changing as if things are happening by themselves. But I mean, that's okay. So what? But there are consequences of me taking this position towards each of these. Since I am thinking that, oh, it's going to heal by itself, for example, when in the example of, let's say, relationship, I am staying inactive there. I am going through this agony of feeling the things are not getting fixed, and I'm not expecting it getting fixed from my maker, from my creator, or anything of that sort. So it leaves me in this state of displeasantness the whole time. I am upset about this state, and since I am expecting it to just heal by itself, I'm living with the stress of that broken relationship. Within the society, I do see that, oh, things are going bad, or by changing by itself in a way that things are getting worse and whatnot. So either I'm going to get stressed and upset about the directionality that it is going, because it's a mindless trend within the society. It's just going bad. This gives me another stress, another anxiety. So all these are coming up with consequences to me. So since it's happening by itself, I'm being either inactive or being in shock and stress of where this is going to. Since the microphone is at me, I don't know if these were good examples or not, but I can, yeah. Also, I was going to ask a question about this verse. Because this verse is as if saying something totally opposite to what the society is saying today. The society says religion is Jabbar. With its laws and rules, religion is enforcing you. Just be free, man. Come on. Like this, when male-female relationship, this gender thing and everything, especially in today's world, like all these are religion-imposed stuff on top of us. So be free. Like the freedom is outside of religion. Religion is, or your Lord, like the Creator and His messengers, are bringing nothing but more oppression to you. Religion is oppressing you. We are inviting you to society says, to freedom. So, and if I guess I don't have Netflix, but just the what I hear, what they show there is all shows that says freedom, 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 and live what your culture, religion, whatever is imposing on you. So here's the freedom. And it's not I need, like we are not stubborn. We are free thinkers, just think freely. But this verse is as if saying that, no, if you don't follow messenger, if you don't see the signs of your creator, like willingly, if you take a stand against the signs of your Lord, and then be disobey messengers of your Lord, you end up following the commands of, and again, the amr over there is interesting. They are following the commands of, the orders of this obstinate tyrants. How come? This is black and white, white and black of a conversion is happening in here. I mean, if this is the case, then it looks like I am being fooled within today's society, as if they are saying that there's this imagined very pious person, and that pious person is being named within the society as the horrible, most horrible person. And normally within the society, there's this most horrible thief person, and he is being presented as the most virtuous person. Black and white is changing. This picture depicts such a thing. If you can show me that this is true, it's really going to take everything upside down within my picture of society.
Jazakallah, thank you. We gave you the microphone to simplify things, simplify our job. Would you like to take the first step, or?
I mean, I'm thinking still in terms of examples. Like one thing that I came to mind is, like, most of us have all been students at one point, right? And when I study for an exam, let's say, and I have to maybe memorize something, maybe it's an equation, maybe it's certain vocabulary, maybe, you know, if it's a law exam, I have to memorize certain legal proceedings, biological facts, if it's med school, things like that. As I'm studying, I'm relying, I might, you know, there might be different methods that I'm doing. Maybe I'm using like Memrise or flashcards or other software. Like I'm utilizing different means, but I'm also relying upon this faculty of memory, right? And I'm relying that it will do its job, which is get the stuff in there. And in one sense, I expect that it will work by itself. And let's say maybe I end up memorizing what I need to, and I pass the exam. But then the next exam, I have to rely on it again. And I never know if, like, it might fail me or not. And I find, you know, stories of, okay, when I grow older, apparently, like, you know, there's dementia, other things, I can lose that faculty. I have to keep it sharp, but it's never quite under my control. And I know that it's working by itself, or I think it's working by itself. And in one sense, I would say it's a kind of tyrant that I've invented, right? Because I'm under this hope that it will give me what I need, but I can never guarantee it either. I can just sort of blindly follow it and live under its oppression. Beg under its oppression, please work again, please work again, please work again. But if I recognize that, oh, it is also created, and I can ask for this, you know, memory or whatever I need from the one who has given me this need, then, you know, if he's given it to me again, he'll give it again. So I'm, you know, that was just one example that, for me, that was more sort of close at home, if you will, of the ways in which we follow the orders of tyrants. And these tyrants can be sometimes at the societal level, right? Which I feel we've been talking about quite often, but also like at a very, just within myself. And of course, these ideas come as well. They're not in isolation, right? I learned that, oh, the memory works this way and it functions this way, and I have to do this to make it, like, they're not invented out of the blue, but I also perpetuate them in my life. So I just wanted to say that. But
Yeah,
you can
a great example, which reminded me, like, you cannot even rely within such a understanding of the life. You cannot even rely on your own skills, because, right, they are here now, they won't be there. So it just by itself, and there's no mind, there's no wisdom, there's no will.
Yeah. And they become oppressive when someone expects us to fulfill something again. It's like, oh, you did a good job, make sure you do a good job again. And I'm like, oh, will I be able to? I don't know.
So going back to Yusuf's question, brother Yusuf's question. So let me give a few examples, like how I see these obstinate tyrants. We mentioned the mindless matter, whatever around us that, you know, acting in its own way without thinking about us and so on. And we have to, you know, comply with it. Another example, which I think heavily related to what Yusuf said, your empty desires and wishes, most of the time, the biggest tyrant. like you find yourself trying to fulfill what you expect of yourself. I have to be handsome, I have to be beautiful, I have to be slim, I have to be, I don't know, that tall or that short, I have to be clever, I have to be good in this, I have to be good in that. And then the eminent ones, the actually tyrant rulers, and these examples can be, extended. But going back to use of questions, so I guess the easy part of this question, there's a truth in it, which is nowadays, the way we understand religion, unfortunately, yes, do's and don'ts. And most of these rules are imposed on us externally. We don't even know why they are there at the first place. We just find ourselves that we have to obey them because our fathers, mothers, society, whatever say so. This is truth. So we have to do something about it for sure. But it doesn't mean at the same time that the peace and the happiness as a human being comes with the anarchy. Right? In any society, you will see that there are certain rules that you abide, and they are, like, we call this society civilized to the extent these rules make sense. The rules are there for the goodness of people. When this is the case, you call it as a civilized society. So I guess the point is, the problem is not having rules or not. The problem is whether these rules, or Sharia as Quran would call, is there for your goodness or not. And whether it is internal to you, that means you can confirm and agree with it or not. So when we look at the rules imposed by these so-called, the freedom fighters. So the expectation is that you have to follow certain norms because they said so. It's not about, whether humanity really accept or really rely on such, let's say, rules or not, whether it fits to a human nature or not, nobody cares. You have to accept these norms because we said so. If you don't follow them, we will call you names. We will make you to go to talk to HR, the human resources, if you are working. If you are not working, you will be canceled in your, environment and so on. That's the only governing, the power. Being afraid of being canceled, afraid of being, called and so on. Nobody can explain any of these so-called freedom norms. There cannot be any explanation. Names are there. They can give you articles, they can give you books, which is full of names, made up names. But any explanation? No, even if talking about them, arguing about them, it's against the rules. You have to accept. So such freedom, so-called freedom, when it comes with the oppression from the beginning, like I'll give you freedom, I will define how you become free, and you have to obey me. This is more oppressive than most religions. In most religions, you at least have choice not to accept it. You say, for instance, oh, no, I'm not part of your religion. Treat me as an outsider. So, for instance, tax laws and so on and so forth will change, and they will treat you outsider. But within this so-called free society, you cannot even be an outsider. You don't have any choice. You either accept these or we cut you. So definitely, like even without looking at the content, the approach is oppressive for sure. Again, when we look at the content, you are not allowed to look at the content first place, because you cannot discuss. Because if you discuss, you will probably offend someone. So, as you know, nowadays I give this example a lot from Malcolm X. He compares Republicans versus the Democrats in the the matters of the black people and their suffering. And he says, I prefer, the Republicans. At least they are like wolves. You know that they are enemy, right? You know that they will attack you, so you get ready. With the Democrats, he says, they are like fox. They approach you as if they are, respect you. They're giving you freedom, free speech, and so on and so forth. But when you look at the practices, when you look at how they act, what they say, and so on and so forth, they're harming you. They're trying to harm you consciously, purposefully, but with tricks. So they're like fox versus wolves. So this is how I see with this freedom in our society. It comes with the cloud of freedom, but to come to oppress you. So it's very tricky, I guess, have a position, locate yourself in such a society. But my understanding, going to your question, when we look at what is offered to us, you have freedom, do whatever your desire, like your nafs, your desires ask for. You basically asking me to be slave of my desires. That I shouldn't question what is right, what is wrong, because there is nothing wrong. There is nothing such that right or wrong. Just follow your desires. But this is one of the tyrants, my desires. I have to overcome.
Since the ayat Rabbihim, so the word Rabb is being used in here, and in some of our discussions, we mentioned Rabb as the teacher creator. This then gives me the example of classroom, which also fits in here. So in the classroom, professor starts with a syllabus and says that here are the 5 assignments, 2 midterms, 1 final, every week these are the readings, these are quizzes and everything. Very restrictive and seems to be very oppressive. And then there is this student, he's not here today. He doesn't care about the professors, so he was with us yesterday. So he says, for example, that student then says, well, I don't care, that cool student, and even doesn't care about the grades and anything, and says, no, I want to play soccer. And I'm going to play PlayStation, and I'm going to hang out with my friends. So this is the freedom. So professor is coming up with signs saying that, look, everything I cover in this class, all the assignments, they're for a purpose. Actually, if you would like to be independent and free in your life, practically speaking, you need to be successful in the class. You need to learn. This is what learning in this sense is going to make you free. By not learning in the first place, you are already so much restricted. You're not free. You need to learn so that you get free in our example. Otherwise, you're going to be a jobless person. With today's society, it's not a good thing. You're going to just be homeless. And then, asal rusulahu, you're disobeying the TAs and all the messengers of the professor, which is telling you that, no, look, I took that class as well. It really makes you understand the topic so well. It gives you the confidence you're looking for. It's not restriction, actually. It's not oppressive. It is making you free. So, but I am the cool student and I say, no, this class is so oppressive, so nonsense. Then what do? I'm not staying neutral, actually. By denying this in the first place, I am already putting myself in the homeless position. But from there on, if I say, no, I'm going to play PlayStation, play soccer, do partying and whatnot, I do. And as you said, my desires, now I am becoming the slave of all those desires, which are forcing me because let's say you played PlayStation for 5 hours. Are you satisfied and you are sure that you're not going to play for the rest of the term? Playing PlayStation is not really a satisfactory behavior. So he's saying that it is too much. Okay, so I talk too much and I guess it's clear.
So yeah, if I tell you that you are free to play PlayStation all your life, but you cannot question this, you cannot question that, you cannot, try to find the true meaning of your life and so on, what kind of freedom I give you? This playing of the PlayStation or choosing identity, which is only, the tiny portion of your humanity, like not in even a minuscule, it's less than minuscule. And I'm giving you a freedom in that. You do whatever you want and actually exaggerate it, make it your entire life so that there will be nothing else from your humanity in your practical life so that I can hurt you easily.
Sounds like Netflix membership. Now you have, once you opted into Netflix with your free choice, now you can choose freely out of hundreds of shows. But you have to watch them. You are sort of imprisoned into this new world of shows that you feel like you have to watch because this is the source of your joy. But there's this false sense of freedom. Oh, I can get my joy from this show versus that show. But I'm already imprisoned in there within this new world of Netflix shows, for example.
And I experienced the consequence of all of this, right? I mean, as we were saying in the beginning, at least how I see it in my life, the way to locate these tyrants in my life, the way to locate my deviations, my false idols, is to locate, okay, where am I experiencing misery? Right? And if we go to the verse after, so this was about empty desires and wishes, and if you want to say something about this, you can, but I was going to talk about the verse.
Yeah, I already covered whatever.
Okay, then next verse. So here it says, already have punishment and anger fallen upon you from your Lord. And so whenever I do abandon my sustainer, or whenever I fail to recognize that the one who has created me, the one who is sustaining me and rightfully attributing whatever I'm experiencing to him, then I experience the misery of that. Right? I experience the misery of following after empty wishes and desires or false tyrants, inventing those tyrants. That misery, in fact, arrives upon me as a consequence of the choices I've made, but also in one sense as a sort of warning, right? As a sort of mercy, saying you've deviated. So maybe we can look at this verse a little bit too.
So I think why such a verse is example, already have punishment and anger fallen upon you from your Lord. So qad waqa, it's already, it already occurred. It's already the case. It's already waqa for you. So it means when like such verses telling us, when you study such topic like the tyrants and not following your Lord's command and so on and so forth, we usually take it as, the punishment will come later. As if, if you don't follow your Lord, he will punish you later. Right? For instance, in hell, which is true. But in such verses, it says, actually the punishment, or whatever you take it as punishment, or azab, the harshness, let's say, it's already there with you. Whenever you follow these false idols, whenever you follow your desires, for instance, empty desires, this harshness is already with you. You don't have to think about the future. Look at the life that you are living. Look at all these things that you have to satisfy. You have to satisfy your wife, your husband, your parents, your boss, your friends, the society. Everything that you have to satisfy, that you have to please, they're already there with you. They're already causing depression, anxiety. Your hair becoming whiter and whiter. Your skin becoming, more and more wrinkled because of this anxiety, let's say. So it is already with you. We have to see that, I guess.
And this is not consequential, natural consequences. As this verse is saying that these, whatever I am going through is not just random or, it's just I'm getting bored. It's a consequence of my Lord's ghadab. This is what it is. Because that verse is 71. In 70, they were saying that, then bring us this doom that you are threatening us with. Hud alayhi salam says it's already here. You are already in that doom. So it's not like, okay, I'm going against commands of God. Let him bring me the doom that you are threatening me with. Hud alayhi salam says, look at yourself. You're already in the middle of the doom. Don't you see this punishment and anger, your current situation of dissatisfaction, anxiety, and everything, they are, and which is very prominent within today's society. This is your Lord's punishment to you right now, and you're going through this. I am talking to you of what you're going through right now. So just wake up. This is being very much, in this sense, eye-opening, how Prophet is talking to them with the situation that they are in. And this is why that revelation 100% speaks to us today as well. This is why sometimes people say, well, those old nations were annihilated and this and that. Why does it not happen? It is happening. Like, look at us as a society. This mental issues are all over the place. Where did this come from? Is it just a natural consequence, or what is happening in here? So I guess in this sense, the punishment and anger of your Lord has already fallen upon you, is, I guess, in this sense.
And you just call names and you say, oh, it's earthquake. Oh, it's just global warming. You give a name and there's nothing to discuss anymore. There is no lesson to take out of it. Oh, go ahead, please.
So I think the important part is about the happening right now, as Yusuf kind of highlighted about. So physical punishment, and then there's the spiritual punishment. I think we need to distinguish between that. The physical punishment is not really that much, matters much. But the spiritual punishment is more disastrous to us in a way. Because the spiritual punishment can be permanent. Physical is like just for this life in this world. So many concepts for us about punishment stays just maybe the fire and the physical body punishment, but I think the spiritual punishment consequence is much more serious for us.
So that's a great point. Like when we think about being like a halak, like being destroyed and so on, we usually think it as material destruction, a mountain falling upon us and so on, or earthquake, yes. When we look at our lives, these spiritual, if you are not unbeliever, the mental, that doesn't matter. We are living a crisis, right? So it must mean something. It doesn't mean anything when you, again, give a name. You say, oh, there's this system of the brain, that system of the brain, these genes, that genes, whatever. You're given a name and you are done with it. There is nothing for you to understand for sure. But when you try to understand what's going on, then you see it as, okay, now I am under the ruling of some tyrants, and this is the consequences. It's not even a punishment. It's something that you choose. You say, I want to live such a life. I want to live in a miserable life. I will deny everything about myself, my mental health. I will deny, I will act against, and this is what you get. This reminded me, so we didn't cover this, but within this story, the story of Ad, so what happens? They are sort of like, historically speaking, from narrations, doesn't matter whether it's true or not. The rain clouds, they come, thunders and so on and so forth, and this is how they are destroyed, okay? But the interesting part, when they saw the rain clouds, the clouds of the thunder, not the thunder, but storm, yes. Stormy clouds coming. They still didn't question. They said, oh, that's great. We needed water. It's been a long time. We needed water, and water is coming. And some of them even ran through the clouds to get, the first, let's say, the experience of the water. Even during the thunder itself, like the storm itself, they were not questioning what's going on. They were just giving names, keeping giving names. It's just a storm, it's just a water, whatever. And this is our situation. We are living in a crisis from every aspect: economical crisis, mental crisis, social crisis, family crisis, the personal crisis. And we are not questioning because we have full of names. Who cares? Like, who need an explanation? Some eminent ones already named them. Sorry. So maybe we should jump to the second part. Yeah. And we have like 15 minutes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is the people of tyrants. And I like to put, the emphasis on ourselves, like individuals this time. We're talking about the tyrants as externals and so on. Some people ruling us, the society, it's poo-poo, bad. But we should also look at the people under this ruling, us, rather than how Quran describes them. So for the sake of time, I will read them quickly, if you don't mind. Say the eminent ones who disbelieved among his people. So these eminent ones are always from you, among you. It's not coming from outside. It's not assigned from outside, right? It's you. Whatever you are, your eminent ones the same. It goes with the prophets and so on as well. Like the prophet, minkum, from you we sent this or that. Him or, anyway. It's always from you, among you. So it represents what you are, what you need. So the same way, do not turn away, like, all my people, ask forgiveness of your Lord, and then repent to him. He will send rain from the sky upon you in showers and increase you in strength, added to your strength. Do not turn away being criminals, or do not turn away actually criminals as criminals. Mujrimeen. تتولوا مجرمين. لا تتولوا. Okay. So don't turn away as mujrimin, the guilty, the criminals. So these tyrants are there within a society of criminals. So it is us that, commit these crimes in the first hand. We are the ones asking for these false names, false idols. And it goes the same way. All my people, actually the things changed a little bit, so maybe I should stop here. If you have any, insights so far.
No, I mean, you can continue.
So it continues with describing the people. All my people, I don't ask you for it any reward. My reward is only from the one who created me. Then will you not reason? So you can read this. I don't ask you for it any reward in two ways. One way is the prophet telling you that I don't ask any reward. But also the prophet is talking to some people, and obviously their expectation is that he would ask for a reward, something in return. Because this is what they are, what we are. We do things only if we see benefit. Only if we see some profit in it. Everything we do is for manfaat, like for something good for us. Otherwise, we don't do it. In such a society, in such a group of people, tyrants arise. So another characteristic, other than him, so this continuation of the previous ayah, so plot against me altogether, then do not give me respite. Again, another characteristics of us, another characteristics of people ruled by tyrants. They plot against each other all the time, strategize, as we say. Nowadays, we call it as strategy, so it's normalized. Right?
We are networking.
Yeah, networking. So do networking, what it means. Like find some people who would support you just because, they like you and so on and so forth. And instead of giving job to Asim who deserves, they will give it to me because I have the network. So I'm implicitly plotting against Asim.
And this is a consequence of the shirk, right? It's a consequence, like this kind of insincerity or this kind of seeking profit in every aspect of my life becomes a direct consequence of living with shirk. It's as the verse was saying, like criminals, this is my thievery is a result of it, right? I act to please towards my parents, my spouse, my sister, my brother, because I'm like, oh, give me something in return, value me, love me, right? I network, I try to get some benefit in that aspect as well. Like there's, I guess, one way of recognizing whether I am committing shirk, if I am having these false idols in my life, is by recognizing or examining whether I have thievery in my life. Where is the criminality in my life?
Exactly, that's a great point. So these ayahs, they don't trying to give you like ethical rules. They don't say don't plot against each other or be criminals and so on and so forth. That part you don't need revelation like such rules, but they are describing yourself. This is why you need revelation, because only through such a revelation you will realize what you are. You will face your true self, and you do this, as Aisha Noor said, like when you think everything happens by itself, like the electron moves by itself, for instance, right? It has this quality and so on. Then you live by yourself. You live by your own rules. And if I live together with, let's say, Zaran, then I have my rules. He has his own rules. I accept such a thing. I start from such a construct. And within this construct, there has to be conflict of forces. And this is exactly how we describe reality. Even in documentaries, poor animals, from our perspective, they live in a life of conflict. Poor animals. They don't even know what conflict is. When you look, for instance, the big not the forest, but
Jungles.
jungles and so on, or deserts, whatever. When there's a water area, all animals come together. Prey and what is the opposite? Predator. They all come together. They don't care about each other. They just drink their water if they are not hungry. So even when they are hungry, they just go eat one and then go away. That's what they do. They don't have any conflict. They don't have any forces, fighting each other and so on and so forth. But with our lenses, this is how we see. Oh, lion will attack this poor deer, and he has to fight, like they run away and so on, as if lion is against the entire nation of deers. It's like, Birkan versus entire tomatoes in the universe, because I eat tomato. No, I will pick one tomato, eat, and that's it. Because I have such an understanding of the reality that everything for itself, this is what I end up with, plotting against each other. It's not about the ethical rules. It's about my understanding of the creation. So you cannot solve this problem by imposing better criminal laws, for instance. You cannot do that. You can only solve this problem, as we discussed at the very beginning, by realizing it's only Allah that creates, nothing else. La sharika lah. That's the only solution. And this is the final ayah we will cover. So we saved him and those with him by mercy from us, and we cut off the roots of those who denied our signs. وَقَطَعْنَا دَابِرًا. So cut off the roots. We've been studying this concept of idea of orphan last a few weeks with a smaller circle, within a smaller circle. And this is what happens when we cut our relationship with our Creator. There's no one taking care of me. We will study this in session 3. But when there is no one taking care of me, everything by itself, everything for itself, then I'm like an orphan. I'm rootless in this existence. And also, not having root also means you don't have any prospect either. You don't have any expectation from future. Ask anybody on the street, right? Of course, some of them will give you some, the future plans and so on, but they will be all about their job and so on, like that. Things they don't really care. Most of the people will not even talk about, their death, which is certain and coming for them. They don't have any plan for it, for instance. All we care is the next class I will take, next title I will race for. I don't have any prospect. If you tell me I have only a few days or a few months of life, which can be true anyway, I wouldn't care about my class or title. I wouldn't care anything. Anything that I would tell you when you ask me, what is your, the future goals? In reality, I don't care about them. It means I'm rootless. I don't have any prospect, real prospect in life. I guess that's all, at least from my side, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, being an orphan in this sense is also about not experiencing that security and protection that I really expect in my life. And when I mean security by protection, I mean I want the things that I enjoy to be protected, to be preserved. Right? I want a sense of security in how I experience my life. And so we see that the consequences of having these ilahs, this shirk in my life, is this azab, this torment, this misery, and also this sort of aimlessness, this orphanage that I end up constructing for myself. So I guess, with these first two sessions, we've talked quite a bit about the consequences, the problems, but one also wants a solution, and maybe we'll not maybe, but inshallah we'll discuss that in the third session of how recognizing our Rabb can be a pathway to that.
Yeah, Jazakallah. So if there are any concluding remarks or comments, we can listen them. Otherwise, we can conclude here, inshallah. Okay. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.